Yes, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Raja Hao. I'm very happy to be here today, and actually as a representative of the German Trade Office, I'm wearing two hats. I have to cover two topics. One is I have to give you an overview of the government side from Germany, the Ministry of Transport and Digital Infrastructure, who cannot be here today. And on the other hand, I have to give you also an overview of maybe the opportunities we have for German business in Taiwan, and on the other hand, of Taiwanese business also in the EU and also in Germany. So, yeah, to do that in 20 minutes is an honor, but also a challenge. Okay, but I will try to do my best, and I will try to cover some basic and main topics. So we start with the government view from Germany on the railway infrastructure, and this will be just a very broad, to give you a broad idea how it's developed and also how it looks today, especially in terms of funding for railway infrastructure in Germany. Yeah, a very crucial year for Taiwan, for Germany was actually 1993, 1994, when the railway reforms were set in place. And I think the main issues at hand were pretty similar in many countries, especially also in Europe. Maybe one special issue we had in Germany at this time was, on the one hand side, we celebrated 25 years of unification this year. So you can look back, actually about 25 years ago, we were also facing the German reunification and the merger of the Deutsche Bundesbahn and also Deutsche Reichsbahn from East and West Germany at a similar time. And actually I work in the railway industry before for 5 years, so I know that the connection and the unity of actually railway people all over the world is very strong. So I think this also helps for the unification of the Eastern German railways and the Western German railways. Yeah, I think the aims of the railway reform at this time was also very similar in many countries. I just want to point out that, of course, the railway reform from the government point of view is not finished, it's ongoing. So it's still the same principles which apply for the goals of ongoing railway reform in Germany. And more traffic to the rail, for example, is very important because you know that CO2 emissions of railway transport is much lower than, for example, cars. Actually, in Germany, only 1% of the CO2 emissions come from railway transport, and for comparison, 16% come from car transport. So that's a big difference. So in terms of environmentally friendliness, of course, railway is much more ahead. So the main topic also was the strict separation between the government and the entrepreneurial functions. Yeah? But there is some remaining influence, of course, of the state and the government, but on a different level. In Germany, for example, like Mr. Jovy has pointed out, the federal government is the owner of the DB, but also at the same time with different entities serves as the railway supervisor with the EBA, the Federal Railway Office, and a couple of years ago actually also the access to the network was changed from the Federal Railway Office to the Federal Network Agency. So we have a Federal Network Agency which supervises access not only, for example, to telecommunication industry, but also for the railway industry. This is in the same federal agency in Germany. Yeah, the principles of infrastructure investments. are that the construction and upgrading and renewal of infrastructure is done by the state, by the government, by the federal government, and the maintenance and repair should be done by the federal railways, of course the DB networks. And since the German network is already a pretty advanced network, the political priority is actually given to the renewal of existing infrastructure. Yeah, so you will also see that in the numbers a little bit later. Yeah, the previous keynote speaker already showed this is basically the network, and you know the difference from, for example, other European networks, or also the Taiwan network, or also the Japanese network is quite huge. We have all the east-west and north-south connections within the German railway system. Also, for example, when you look at France, I mean, you also know that you have all the lines going from Paris to the other big cities, but basically the connections between the other big cities, except Paris, are not that strong. So we have a very, you can say, more complex network in Germany. So it requires a lot of attention also from the investment into infrastructure point of view. And the investment actually in the renewal is basically done on the you can see the budget funds available also on an annual basis. So for the new projects, we really have to look at the funds available, and then the new projects are actually planned and then initiated. On the other hand, in Germany, the government found out, the federal government found out that this project-by-project approach for the renewal and the maintenance is not a very good approach. This was done before, on a project-by-project basis. But then it was changed to a 5-year contract. The German federal government concludes with the DB AG, and it's now since beginning of 2015 actually the second 5-year contract. So you can see that the first 5-year contract was supposed to work very well, and that's why the federal government and the DB AG concluded the second one. And it changed basically here from a input point of view, project by project point of view, to more control from the output. Yeah, there are certain targets on how the network has to work, and it's then by the federal railways, the DB AG, to ensure that these targets are actually met over the years. So this also gives a better planning opportunity for the DB AG actually. Since the railway reform 1994, actually more than 80 billion euros were invested, and you can see that at the moment the infrastructure investment by the federal government is more than 3.3 billion euro, and at the same time laid out also in the agreement, the maintenance contribution is more than 1.6 billion actually from DB AG. Yeah, the last cornerstone on the one hand side is the upgrading of the development of new infrastructure, then the maintenance and renewal of existing infrastructure, and another cornerstone, the third one, is actually the financing of short distance passenger transport by rail. So the government provides, the federal government in Germany provides actually more than 7.3 billion euros to the different federal states, and then they purchase the public service obligation, also from public service obligation providers, the local transport by rail with this funds. Yeah, so this is basically there's a lot of funds going from the federal government to the different sections of the railways. This is a overview on the view of the federal government and how infrastructure in Germany is actually financed. And now I have to put one hat aside and put the other one off, the one of the German business, because you saw, of course, one of the very famous companies in Germany, the very successful companies in Germany. The DB AG is one of the major players in the market. You also have later the opportunity to listen to two of the other major players in the market, Siemens and Voith, of the German business in the railway industry. But I also would like to give you some general overview of what, on the one hand side, the German railway industry is and represents, and on the other hand also what, and I think also one of the other companies here who is interested in the European market, what kind of opportunities lie in the EU and also in the German market. So actually the EU represents, or EU suppliers represent 45%, more than 45% market share worldwide for the railway supply market. So the EU is actually, or the companies in the EU are the strongest in the world with regard to the railway supply market. We have in the EU level more than 400,000 people working in the industry, and also the EU represents the biggest railway market in the world, actually for deliveries. Yeah? So even ahead of NAFTA, North America, and also before Asia Pacific. So it's the biggest market in the world for railway supplies. So if you are in the railway supply, if you are a railway supply industry and you are not in the biggest market, not in the EU, you know, of course this could be a challenge for your business. Actually, in Germany we have more than 130 specialized companies in the railway supply industry, and I also think that Germany is one of the very few countries in the world where you find everything. You find on the one hand side the big system integrators like Siemens, but you also find a lot of SMEs and specialized companies for components, and you also find all the service providers. For example, when it comes to leasing or engineering or consulting, you also find that in the German market. And this is not the case on this level, let's say, for many other countries. Also, the German railway supply industry has come up with three main topics which they would like to achieve, and I think this fits also the Taiwanese requirements very well, yeah, because it's on one hand side excellence, but also sustainability, which is becoming more and more important, and also cost effectiveness. So these three topics basically the German the railway supply industry stands for. I would like to give you two examples which are not present today, but I just learned that, for example, Voith, for the project in Danshui, they have also brought many German sub-suppliers actually now to the Taiwanese market, and one of them is Gemeinde, a company which is more than 100 years old and who is specializing in transmissions for trains, and they just concluded a contract for Taiwan, for the light rail in Danshui, for actually more than 2 million euros for the delivery of 130 transmissions for the light rail in Danshui. And for this company in Germany, and I talked to them, it's the first time actually they deliver directly to Asia, yeah, and it's to Taiwan. So I was very happy about this. On the one hand side, you have, for example, also companies like Knorr-Bremse. Knorr-Bremse has, they are the world leader for brake systems, development and production of brake systems, also for trains. And yeah, you can say this is maybe a medium-sized company. Actually, they have a turnover of more than 5 billion euros and have 23,000 people working for them. Yeah, so it's maybe not very well known to people who are outside the railway market, but they are a major player in the market in this area. On the other hand, I already mentioned it, also the European Union and Germany can be a very interesting market for the supply as well. And I already mentioned also, and I want to point it out again, that the EU is actually the biggest absolute market for rail products and services worldwide, and the rolling stock segment is the largest part of it. And a big part of it is also, and there I can add one or two things for the DB AG. You can see this is an annual purchase volume of just one player in the market of DB AG. They have 35,000 suppliers already and 300,000 individual transactions. So as a customer, this is just one of your potential customers in the European, in the German market. And how to get there? When I worked for purchasing for DB before, yeah, so a longer time ago we were already talking about purchasing from Asia, and now finally I read in the newspaper that the DB opened an office. Sorry for this number, this is actually 2015, so it was just now that DB opened an office in Shanghai for the purchase of in Asia, so they really want to purchase in Asia. And I personally believe that Taiwan is in excellent condition to supply not only DB but also other customers in Germany and in Europe with their innovative and high technology products. So this is really the way to go. Yeah, how to do, yeah, how to approach customers and how to learn more about the market and the development and the technological possibilities they are in the world's largest market. And there are maybe a couple of other opportunities you have, but I would like to present to you what we consider from the German Trade Office the most important way to do, which is, and that's why we also invited them outside with a stand for showcasing what InnoTrans is. InnoTrans is 60% actually of the major trade fairs happen in Germany, and InnoTrans is, I think, maybe one of the only leading world-class trade fairs in the world for railway technology. Takes place every 2 years in Berlin, which is actually also a very nice place to visit in September. Yeah, and it's now also more than a trade fair. It's actually, there are a lot of conventions, meetings around this show before and after. So you not only have the possibilities to basically see how 55 different countries represent themselves, and I'm very happy that Taiwan is one of the country who represents already, is already represented at the InnoTrans. But you also have the chance for more in-depth discussions actually on the different forums they provide. Yeah, so it's basically a very good opportunity to go there, and maybe one or the other has been already there. But what is important for me to show you also how it developed over the last 8 years, because maybe you have been there 8 years ago, you say, okay, it was quite nice, I don't need to go there again. But you can see from all the numbers, and I found this very impressive, not only from the visitors, but also from the exhibition space and the exhibitors. Basically all the numbers have doubled in the last 8 years. Okay, so maybe you have been already at InnoTrans 8 years ago, but now it's double the size of what it was when maybe you have been there last time. So it's definitely worth to go there again. And I know that, for example, for the September 2016, they're already booked out by 95%. So it's quite well. Well, it's a market which has to be accessed quite early, and which there's still space, but it's quite limited. Yeah, so from the German Trade Office, because we have heard many success stories from Taiwanese companies who went to InnoTrans and then who started business with European and also with German suppliers or also with customers. We consider this as a major forum. So like our executive director, Mr. Hergenröther, already pointed out, we have invited, or it's under preparation to invite Minister Chen to also lead a delegation to the InnoTrans, and we duly hope that we can also welcome more Taiwanese representatives, more Taiwanese exhibitors in September 2016. And I just want to show you also some pictures, especially this one, because I really love it so much. You know, as a railway enthusiast, you have on the where can you find all this basically equipment and trains and everything which is there in the industry, you know, on this dense area. So there are 2 days also open for public, you know, where the consumers give you direct feedback also maybe on certain things, on certain products. And I think for everybody in the rail industry and also for all the rail lovers, it's just a great opportunity to make yourself familiar with more familiar with the latest developments of railway technology. So I come to an end, and thank you very much. Yeah. And we are very happy if you have any further questions on the federal government side or on the German railway industry business side to contact me or one of my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thanks for General Manager Jovy for giving us a very wonderful sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, we now are going to take a 20 minutes break. Refreshment is served.